Today we're going to talk about the T4 units available to each faction in Lord of the Rings Rise to War. We're going to go over their exact abilities, we'll go over their stats, and everything you need to know. Hello my friends and welcome back, I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today we're going to go over all of the T4 special units for each faction in Lord of the Rings Rise to War. This does not include the units that can be found on the map that are available to an entire side, so either good or evil, such as the Eagles, but these are the units that you yourself can conscript for your specific faction, and we're going to go over every single faction, starting with evil. But before we do, big shout out to Droid2, who is a member of the Restart project that we have going on right now, that shared these in our Restart Project's Discord server. So let's get started with evil. Rune's special unit is the War Chariot. It is a cavalry unit that is effective against melee enemies that can inflict bleed. And yes, it is very effective against melee enemies. It gets 20% extra damage, which is a big deal, and against 2 enemy targets. Inflicts a bleed, causing the target to suffer 30% physical damage, continuous every round for 1 round, so a round of bleeding. It's a lot of damage. These are 20 units per command. So usually we're seeing in the realm of like 4 or 5 units per command, if it's a really large unit, or even something like 50 units per command for your typical cavalry. This is 20 units per command. The damage they deal is 45 to 60. They have 260 hit points and 70 defense. Now, that defense number actually feels pretty low to me. Their speed is 95 and their siege is 83. All in all, I think this is very strong. In fact, one of the stronger special units for the side of evil, if I'm not mistaken. And I talked about which factions might be best overall in a separate video. I'll have a card up in the top. You can check that one out after this video finishes. Let's go to the next special unit. This is the Snaga Thrak, available to Isengard, and it's a really weird one, okay? It's 50 units per command, which is about what we would expect for a special unit in general. Most of them are 50 units per command, and it is unaffected by madness and gets a speed boost of plus 20. Now, the unaffected by madness is important because the second part's really weird. Against 1 ally unit, inflicts 20% physical damage and increases the next instance of damage by 100%. And there's no effect if no other allied unit remains. So you need to have some other ally present, and it's like dealing damage to an ally to give, I guess, itself a large damage boost. And what's also kind of weird about the Snaga Thrak, if we just look at their stats really quickly, is that they are just a very large damage range, 6 to 66. They're very inconsistent. So if you get that huge damage boost and they're doing a small amount of damage, I mean, that kind of sucks. This is per unit, okay? But if it ends up being that upper end of things and you get the damage boost, I mean, you could have some very bursty turns with Snaga Thraks. Their hit points are 72 and defense is 37. So if you thought the War Chariot was maybe low-ish, at 70, 37 is certainly much, much, much lower. Speed is 80 and siege is 25. I think that the Snaga Thrak is an interesting unit that has a lot of potential to be broken because of the way its effects work. I don't know what commander you would pair with to just absolutely break these, but I feel like there is obviously a lot of potential with mechanics like that where you're doing a bunch of damage in a turn. Up next, we have the Angmar T4, the Fallen, 50 units per command, a resistant cavalry unit that gets stronger as it receives damage. Now, all cavalry units have this ability to reduce damage taken by 10%. That is the horse icon that you see here. But this one is interesting. It increases its damage by 6% upon receiving damage up to a maximum of 10 stacks. So yeah, you could get 60% damage, and that happens every time it receives damage. So I assume you would want to pair Fallen with some amount of healing or restoration so that as they're taking damage, you bring them back, and then you have a lot of them doing a lot of damage. That, I think, is how you would accomplish that. Their damage is far more consistent than the Snaga Thraks. It's 30 to 40. Their hit points is also very high, which is common for cavalry. We see about 92 as their hit points. Defense of 55 is moderate. I think it's fine, but maybe even still on the lower end of things. And that speed is remarkable. 134 with 24 siege per unit. That's not per command. That's per unit. I think that the Fallen are a really solid unit. Like, I can't imagine that you would be disappointed with Fallen. I imagine that if you pair them with healing, they're going to be very strong. And I honestly would like to give these a try at some point in my time playing Lord of the Rings Rise to War. This final evil unit is for Mordor, and I wish it was more effective than I think it actually is. That is the Ravager. And I want this unit to be really cool. Like, I want it to be really awesome, and I'm told that it's just not. It is a resistant large infantry unit that can attack all enemies at once, and large is the problem. There are too many units that get bonus damage to large units, 50% bonus damage. And those units are good enough that you would be using them anyways in your army, potentially, especially on the side of good. So Ravagers are hard countered by some units in a really savage way, okay? But if you were using the Ravagers, they reduce physical damage taken by 15% and have a 50% chance to attack all enemies every round. Wow. Wow. I mean, that seems really good, and it seems especially good against armies that have more unit types in it, right? Because if I understand correctly, normally you would attack one unit, but if they have 2 units, you'd be doing your damage twice to 2 units, or it would be 3x your damage in that round if they had 3 units. So I think Ravagers are better against armies that have lots of different unit types in there. And if we get a look here, their units per command is 4. So this is a beefy unit, right? The War Chariots were 20. The others were all 50. This is 4 per command. They have 400 to 420 damage, 1,300 hit points per, 76 defense, 20 speed, and 620 siege. So I think this is a, unfortunately, hard countered unit. I want it to be really good. I genuinely think it's a really cool looking unit, lore unit. I like everything about it except how I'm told that it actually performs. I don't know what you would do to protect or break this. I don't know if it's healing. I don't know if it's boosting its defense because it already has a very high health pool already. But unfortunately for the Ravagers, there's just a lot of hard counters running around, and they are commonly found in enemy armies. Making our way to the side of good and to the faction that I think is probably the strongest overall, that is Rohan with Marshals. This is a fast cavalry unit with devastating first few blows. So they do a lot of damage up front, front-loaded damage. And like all cavalry units, 50 per command and also 10% damage reduction. But also, the damage dealt is boosted by 56%, modified by the speed stat. Now, I don't know if that 56% was that player's already modified by speed stat. But anyways, this effect diminishes by 1/3 with each damage dealt. So you do a lot of damage at the start of the fight. You want to keep as many of your units alive at the start as you possibly can to do a bunch of damage. And that damage is very consistent, 34 to 40. Their hit points are 90. The defense is 43, which is very low compared to some of the other units we've been looking at. So I feel like boosting their defense seems good, but also because they get some major damage boosts, you might want to boost their attack a little bit for the start of the fight. Speed of 157 has to be just some of the fastest we've seen, and siege of 25. I guess because so much of what they're doing is modified by speed stat. I mean, you just want to use Marshals with AON and just freaking slay people by stacking as much speed as you possibly can. You attack first and just do a ton of damage. I really like the Marshals. I like the lore of this unit as well. I think it's very cool, very strong. In fact, as a special unit, 10 out of 10. Can recommend. And up next is more Cavs, the Swan Knights from Gondor. Now, these are really cool and open up some very, very cool possibilities for your army. In fact, in some ways, these are offering you more versatility than you were kind of getting with the Marshal, which is the all-in attacker plan. The Swan Knight, here's what it does. A resisting cavalry unit that protects allies for the first few turns. See, that's really cool. So what does it do? It receives 10% less damage, as all cavalry do. It's 50 units per command, as we've seen with all the other cavalry. But in the first 3 rounds, it gives itself a defense buff of 100 and takes all damage from normal attacks on behalf of allies. Wow. I mean, that's really, really, really cool. That opens up possibilities for protecting ranged units. That is just very, very powerful. Even like you use Swan Knights and other things like Dunedains that go in the front and can do a lot of damage but are relatively vulnerable. The Swan Knights protect them. Yeah, I think Swan Knights open up some really cool strategic possibilities. And as you might expect, these are more tanky than the other cavalry we've been looking at. Less damage, 27 to 34. Hit points are 98. Defense is 66. Speed is 128, so way slower than the Marshals. But speed is not really important for these guys. And 28 siege per. I love this unit. I love that it opens up strategic possibilities. I think there's a lot you can do with it that is really, really cool and makes Gondor maybe cooler than I had represented in my video reviewing the factions just for this unit. Because I think you'll see as I review some of the units coming up that they aren't going to be quite as cool as the Swan Knight, which is doing something just like very, very different. In fact, let's talk about the Marchwarden of Lothlorien. This is, of course, an archer unit, and it's got 50 units per command, and it is a high damage range unit that will never miss its target. So this is hard countering units that have avoidance. There is a 100% chance to ignore enemies' avoidance statuses each round. You cannot miss, okay? Defense plus 20 and is unaffected by stun. The Marchwarden, I mean, it's cool you're unaffected by stun. Presumably you want to pair them with a commander that doesn't already give you that benefit, okay? And it's a hard counter to avoidance that your enemy may or may not have. The damage is, as advertised, very high. 59 to 60, 66 hit points, 41 defense, 99 speed, and 17 siege. I feel like Marchwardens are a unit you would want to use, especially with a commander like Gimli, who can have a dwarf protect them and keep them from taking damage until your dwarves are run dry. I think it's a fine special unit, but not as cool as some of the others that really change the gameplay, I feel, in a pretty significant way. And we've got more ranged units here that we need to talk about. Arnor's tier 4 unit is the Ranger of the North, a resistant large unit most suited to use in the open field, which also is a cool piece of lore. So what does this mean, the open field? When you are battling on non-structure land, so I assume that's not a keep, that is not a crossing, that's not a fort. When you're battling just on any old tile, whether you're taking the tile for the first time or whether you are battling a player that is on that tile, you get a 10% damage boost and 10% less damage taken. It's very good there. Defense plus 20 and absorb enemy normal attacks against allied ranged units, which is kind of interesting. So it's, if another ranged unit you have is getting attacked, I guess you take the damage over here instead. Not that these guys are all that tanky, but 86 hit points is pretty good. Damage of 35 to 38 is very consistent, and the defense of 49 is fine. Not amazing, but fine. I think Rangers of the North are actually pretty cool. That last little bit, absorbing enemy normal attacks against allied ranged units, has potential to be broken. I would argue not as broken as Swan Knights, but you can probably break that in some meaningful way, filtering the damage to your Rangers of the North. They've got a speed of 100, siege of 15. I like that twist of absorbing the other attacks. But on the topic of absorbing other attacks, gosh bless, how about Erebor? These dwarves are freaking top tier, man. I use this extensively. It's very good. Very good. The Iron Warrior for Erebor, the dwarves, is powerful. Very resistant, infantry unit, effective against melee enemies. Yes, it is. Physical damage received, minus 15%. Now, that doesn't help you against focus damage, but that's so good, 15%. And against melee units, deal 20% more damage. I mean, you tank well, and you dish out damage to the enemy frontline. It's an ideal frontline unit. It is an ideal unit to pair with Gimli, and I'll show you why in just a minute here. In fact, let's just talk about it. 50 units per command, but look at the defense, 116. Have we looked at another unit that has as much defense as this? I don't think we have we? Right? 84 hit points, 30 to 34 damage. Damage is low. Speed is very slow, 49. And siege is pretty moderate, 42. The Iron Warrior is one of the easier to understand and use frontline units, probably in the game. Like, you put it there, it's tanky, it does damage, it's high defense. You pair that with some amount of healing, and my gosh, that is just really quite strong. I have used these extensively. I was very, very happy with them. People in our first season of this game where I was using them were saying like, oh, it's the best special unit in the game. And I don't know that that's necessarily true, but it is very, very powerful. And I did enjoy using it. And a unit that I'm eager to try, and I don't know how it's going to go, is Lyndon's special unit. I'm playing Lyndon right now, and it's the Noldor Longshot over here. Now, this is a high damage unit that can attack all enemies at once. Okay, you have my attention. It's a weird one, though. 50 units per command, and there is a 100% chance to ignore enemy avoidance statuses each round. Well, I mean, that's fine. That's fine. But against 2 targets, the attack is boosted to 150% of physical damage on rounds 1, 4, 7, and 10, but normal attacks are disabled. So on turn 1, 4, 7, and 10, you front load your damage, you attack 2 targets, do 150% physical damage, but then 3 turns of downtime before a big volley on 4, a big volley on 7, and a big volley on 10 with no normal attacks. It's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of weird. There's probably a way to break this, but I got to figure out exactly what that is. Certainly in the same way you'd want to protect your other archer units, like your Marchwardens, that like you'd want to protect the Noldor Longshot from taking damage. 35 defense is very low. 60 hit points is fine, but not high. 55 to 56 damage is extremely consistent high damage, and that's going to get boosted by 150% on rounds 1, 4, 7, 10, and you hit 2 targets, which is pretty cool. There's speed of 69, siege of 16. Neither of those is particularly remarkable. You just need to make sure that you have enough of them alive by the time turn 10 comes around, that you actually get a meaningful attack out of them. Otherwise, they're just soaking up damage for a couple rounds, which really sucks. So if you have a way to protect your long shots so that they last till the end of the fight, you can take advantage of that full damage and do some pretty cool stuff. Jumping in game real quick, instead of looking at screenshots, you can see that I'm really close to unlocking my Noldor Longshots. I've got to finish my Elven Quarter. I've got to then go and unlock the Archer Camp, which if I recall is like a 24 to 36 hour build. And then I've got to train 1,000 of them, and I will complete my quest and have some of these to start to play with, which I'm very much looking forward to. The season is progressing pretty nicely. I am on the final chapter journey. As far as ranking goes, even though I'm pretty strapped for time, I'm sitting at a personal ring rank of 14, personal production of 15 this season. Fellowship production is looking pretty good. We're at 1.3 million. Then also from our restart group, 1 million. Also from our restart group, 995,000. And then, hey, there's All Things Middle-earth, man. Definitely looking forward to playing on this server with him. And then, boom, here we are. 650K is our next one. It's going to be a heck of a time. You're not going to want to miss it. And if you got value from this video, consider subscribing and throwing a like on here. It's 100% free to you. It supports the channel. It's your way of giving me a high five. That's like, hey, man, that was pretty cool. Thank you for gathering that information. And the true thanks goes to Droid2 in Discord. Cheers, I appreciate you. If there's other thanks that is due there, let me know. I'm happy to put that into a pinned comment. But Droid, thanks for sharing those screenshots. Really appreciate it. Until next time, everybody, you have fun smashing your enemies. And if you want to see just my overall review of all the factions and where you could be on the map. Card is up in the top. You can check out that video. And, yeah, we'll kind of see what happens next here. I think it's going to be pretty exciting.